The sound of something cutting through the air was heard. The second black arrow was shot out of the woods and headed straight toward the duo. This shot was even faster and fiercer, with an indestructible force. Wherever the arrow passed by, the air would become distorted. Celestial Blade! Destin pointed his finger forward. Instantly, Celestial Blade unsheathed and transformed into a black light. Then, it collided heavily with the arrow. Another loud bang sounded. Destin's Celestial Blade was blown several feet backward as the black arrow exploded and spun in the air. How powerful! Destin's expression turned serious. His Celestial Blade was known to be indestructible and could break anything it met. However, Celestial Blade had almost lost control and was blown away by a single arrow. It seemed that the person who shot the arrow was extremely powerful. Who's the one secretly shooting the arrows? Show yourself! Destin shouted toward the woods. The sound of laughter could be heard. A well-dressed, middle-aged, skinny man suddenly jumped up. Then he landed steadily on a tree's leaf. His body was as light as a feather, swaying with the wind. There was no trace of human energy leaking from his whole body. It was as if he had merged with the earth, making it impossible to discern if he was real or just an illusion. "You're the one who killed Blackie just now?" Abigail asked through gritted teeth. Her face was filled with fury. "It's just a little life. What's dead is dead," the well-dressed middle-aged man replied indifferently. "How dare you kill Blackie? I want your life." Abigail roared in anger and was about to avenge Blackie. However, Destin reached out and stopped her. "Don't act impulsively. This person is no ordinary foe." "Ha ha ha. Your Grace, we finally meet again after 10 years. The well-dressed middle-aged man said with a smile. "Who are you?" Destin questioned Lily. "Caesar Fent." The well-dressed middle-aged man cupped his hands. "You're Caesar Fent." Destin widened his eyes. His expression became more solemn. Caesar was a mighty ultimate grandmother and also the head of Martial Arts Union. Plus, he was ranked number 8 on the astonishing world list. Destin's heart dropped when he saw the man smiling innocently in front of him. Nestor was already difficult to deal with. He didn't expect Caesar to pop up. After all, Caesar had been in command of the Martial Artists Union for many years. Not only was he extremely skilled, but he was ruthless. All unions needed to listen to Caesar's command. The Martial Artists Union would oppress those who didn't. In severe cases, their unions might even be eliminated. "It looks like you still remember me." What an honor. Caesar had a fake smile on his face. "I didn't expect the head of Martial Arts Union to come over. It looks like Dragon Guard wants to kill me desperately." Destin started to gather his energy slowly. Destin had only just become an ultimate grandmother. Thus, he wasn't confident about going against experienced ultimate grandmasters like Caesar. Now he could only fight back with all his might. "You shouldn't have come to Oakville alone, without the protection of the 3 great generals of the Reese family. You're just waiting to be slaughtered," Caesar said with a smile. "I'm not that easy to kill." With a wave of his hand, Destin summoned Celestial Blade. It flew several feet and landed steadily in his hand. "Resisting is just futile for you. You should preserve your dignity. If you end your life right now, you can suffer a bit less," Caesar sneered. "Stop spouting nonsense. You have to go through me first if you want to kill him." Abigail suddenly stepped forward. Black energy oozed out, and a phantom of a black phoenix was formed, hovering above her. The black phoenix was vivid and majestic, exuding a formidable aura. A black flame would emerge between its flapping wings. It looked particularly terrifying. When Caesar saw that, he furrowed his eyebrows in shock. "I didn't expect you to have a cultivation level of ultimate grandmother. I didn't know that Dragon Mars has such a genius like you." "Cut the crap." Abigail glared at him. However, Caesar seemed to realize something. "Your cultivation level is unstable. I don't think you achieved this level by cultivating. It seems like you have inherited it. You have the Phoenix bloodline and are skilled in voodoo skills. If I'm not wrong, you're the Mystic Arts Order's Grand Sorceress." So what? Abigail didn't deny it even when her identity was exposed. She decided to admit it instead. Asshole, Dustin is my master. If anything happens to him, I'll kill everyone in Oakvale. After hearing that, Caesar laughed again. Kid, it seems like you don't understand what's going on. Dustin is considered a traitor to the nation. If you dare to help him, you'll be going against the entire Dragon Marsh. Can you bear the consequences of that? I don't care what the consequences are. I'll kill anyone along with their family if they dare to hurt my master. Abigail shouted. Caesar shook his head. How stubborn. It seems like I would need to teach Mystic Arts Order a lesson. That way, you guys will know who the leader of Dragon Marsh is. Do you think I'm scared of you? Abigail was unfazed by his threats. The Mystic Arts Order's headquarters were located in a forest. It was filled with dangers, making it easy for them to defend when their enemies attacked, regardless of how big of an army they brought. It was a one-way ticket for anyone who dared to intrude into Mystic Arts Order's territory. Mr. Fent, you came just in time. At this moment, Nestor walked out of the white mist. Then he appeared behind Dustin and Abigail and chirped. These two were extremely cunning and almost got away. Why don't we join forces and eliminate the threat as soon as possible to avoid future trouble? What do you think? Mr. Wilkins, you're the unrivaled master within the palace gates. Can't you even handle two kids like them? Nestor had a half smile. That's just a title. I'm nothing compared to you. Plus, the most important task today is to complete the mission. We can't afford anything to happen, Nestor said humbly. Since you said that, you should make the first move. I'll stand by and cover for you, however. Caesar was unmoved. Nestor furrowed his eyebrows at Caesar's words. However, he soon relaxed his face and replied indifferently. Okay, anything you say, Mr. Fent. Although he wasn't satisfied with Caesar's indifference. Dealing with Dustin and Abigail with his skills was not a problem. He would only need to use minimal effort to deal with them. Your Grace, you're doomed. Go to hell. Before Nestor finished speaking, he transformed into a shadow and darted toward Dustin. Keep an eye on me, Abigail. I'll deal with this jerk myself. With a celestial blade in his hand, Dustin faced Nestor head-on. Their battle had been arranged a year ago. Today, they would use this chance to fulfill their long-awaited battle. The two figures soon intertwined, and their fierce battle started. Dustin had excellent swordsmanship, which he inherited from the Sword Whisperer. With the celestial blade, his attacks were much more vicious and deadly. On the other hand, Nestor cultivated Angry Iron Fist. It was a top-tier defensive technique. Once mastered, the martial artist would be unharmed against anything, including blades. The Iron Fist statue would also protect them, almost making them invincible. Most importantly, Nestor remained a virgin all this time. Thus, he had preserved his masculine essence and could master Angry Iron Fist to its pinnacle. Even with Dustin's celestial blade, breaking through Nestor's defenses would be difficult. When Dustin was engaged in a ferocious battle with Nestor, Abigail focused on dealing with Caesar. Although both were ultimate grandmasters, she reached her cultivation level due to Phoenix energy. She was considered skillful. However, she couldn't fully master the skills, and it hadn't been long since she had inherited them. It wasn't a problem for her to deal with ordinary ultimate grandmasters. However, she didn't have any confidence when faced with experts like Caesar, who was also on the astonishing world list. Of course, she wouldn't surrender even though she knew she couldn't defeat him. If she ran away, Dustin would be up against two. That meant he would be fighting a losing battle. Kid, you're going to fight me? Caesar lifted an eyebrow. Is there a problem? Abigail's expression was indifferent. Caesar laughed at her confidence. How brave of you. All right, I'll give you a chance today. If you can defend against 3 of my shots, I'll spare your life. Caesar smiled. It's uncertain who's going to die yet. Abigail mocked. This is the first shot. Get ready. Caesar's lips curled into a playful smile. At the same time, he mimicked the action of drawing a bow. Oddly enough, he didn't have a bow and arrow in his hand. However, a black bow appeared out of nowhere as he drew a bow. On the taut bowstring, there was even a sharp arrow emitting a sharp glint. When Caesar loosened his grip, the black arrow immediately shot forward. Then it soared toward Abigail, echoing like thunder. Abigail's eyes widened, and she immediately jumped to the side to dodge the incoming attack. However, just as she dodged, the black arrow suddenly curved and hit Abigail in the chest. It was as if it had a mind of its own. A huge explosion sounded. Abigail was instantly sent flying over several feet. Finally, she crashed into a large rock. Her face was pale as she spat out blood. How could this happen? Abigail clutched her chest and furrowed her eyebrows. The arrow was too fast for her eyes to follow. Although she managed to dodge it, she didn't expect the arrow to curve when traveling so fast. The arrow had hit her chest without any warning. If she hadn't worn the protective amulet her grandmother gifted her, she would have been dead. As number 8 on the astonishing world list, Casper was indeed powerful. Not bad. The Phoenix bloodline can actually withstand my attacks. Interesting. Casper smiled. However, I still have 2 more shots. Let's see how you can block them. While saying that, Casper once again mimicked the gesture of drawing a bow. The black bow and arrow slowly materialized in his hands, entirely formed from his internal energy. It was obvious that Caesar's mastery of his internal energy had reached a profound level. He didn't need any weapon. He could use his internal energy to make all kinds of weapons as he wished. Next up, the second shot, Caesar released the arrow. The bowstring, made from his spiritual energy, instantly shot the arrow. Then, the arrow transformed into a bolt of black lightning and flew toward Abigail again. Phoenix, Abigail shouted. The energy within her started to stir. Then a black phoenix emerged and collided head-on with Caesar's arrow. The eyes of the black phoenix were crimson, and flames surrounded its body. It created a gust of wind with the flap of its wings. The phoenix exuded a majestic and imposing presence. A huge explosion sounded. When the black arrow and phoenix collided, a ferocious black wave exploded. Whatever the black wave touched would be destroyed and disintegrated. Whether it was plants or rocks, nothing could stand against it. Instantly, they crumbled into dust. With a groan, the black wave sent Abigail flying a few feet away. She crashed onto the floor and spat out blood. This time, she didn't have the energy to even stand up. There was a huge difference in the 2's strength. Abigail had just become an ultimate grandmother, while Caesar was a fully developed divine-level martial artist. There was a 3-level difference between them. Thus, Abigail didn't stand a chance at all. It was smart of you to use your Phoenix bloodline to block my second arrow. However, how are you going to fight against the third? With an indifferent expression, Caesar drew a bow again. Abigail might as well be dead in his eyes. Although he felt that it was a shame to kill her, he would rather kill any disobedient martial artist like her. This way, he could prevent any troubles in the future. At that, Caesar shot out the third arrow without hesitation. The arrow flew toward Abigail with immense power. Abigail was utterly hopeless. She slumped on the ground, powerless to fight back. She didn't expect she would die there. She had experienced so many difficulties and was just about to reach the peak of her career. She didn't know she would meet a top martial artist like Caesar here. She couldn't believe her rotten luck. Abigail turned and looked at Destin. She smiled bitterly as she watched Destin fight. "Sir, it's time to say goodbye." Just as Abigail was prepared to die, a dragon soared above her head. Suddenly, the golden dragon swooped down from the sky and blocked the arrow from Abigail at the last minute. An explosion sounded. The black arrow that Caesar shot out had exploded. The golden dragon also dispersed, revealing the item inside it. It was a sword emitting golden radiance. The sword was suspended vertically in midair like a shield. It hovered before Abigail, protecting her against all attacks. There were two words carved on the sword's body: Dragon Sparrow. "I'm not dead." Abigail was both stunned and thrilled. However, her attention was soon drawn to the Dragon Sparrow sword. She wondered who could block Caesar's full blow with just a sword. Dragon Sparrow sword. When Caesar saw the sword hovering in the air, his eyes narrowed. The smile on his face instantly dropped as he turned serious. Dragon Sparrow sword was the top sword in the world. The person who owned it was the most prominent swordsman, the sword whisperer Seth. "Why don't you show yourself, Mr. Hughes?" Caesar looked up and scanned his surroundings. His voice was like a resounding bell, echoing far into the distance. Soon, a man in white slowly emerged from the clouds. Finally, he stood on a rock and stared at Caesar. The man who was the sword whisperer Seth. When Seth appeared, it was as if an immortal had descended onto Earth. Although he didn't look harmless, everyone was immediately drawn to him. Even Dustin and Nestor, who were engaged in a fierce battle, stopped fighting. Uncle Seth. Dustin couldn't help but feel thrilled when he saw him. Seth was the most capable out of the three great generals of the Reese family. He was also the one who taught Dustin sword techniques. Although Seth was not his master, he taught Dustin his sword techniques. In a sense, Abigail was also considered Seth's disciple. Why did this weirdo show up? Nestor furrowed his eyebrows. His expression had turned grim. The sword whisperer, Seth, was third on the astonishing world list. No one could beat his sword skills. Plus, nobody was able to survive 3 of his sword attacks consecutively. With Seth's capability, Caesar and Nestor couldn't beat him even if they worked together. "You've come all this way. Mr. Hughes, I feel like I'm not respecting you for not welcoming you properly," Caesar said with a fake smile. "Caesar, you're already quite old. Don't you feel shameful to bully a young woman like her? If you have the courage, fight with me. I'll only use 3 moves. If you can block them, I'll spare your life," Seth replied indifferently. Caesar's eyes twitched at Seth's taunt. He said the exact same thing to Abigail just now. Just now, Caesar had shown absolute disregard toward Abigail. His tone was disdainful with a hint of mockery. "Although you're the sword whisperer and extremely capable, I'm not weak either. You're too arrogant to think you can beat me with 3 attacks." Caesar sneered. Both of them were on the astonishing world list. Although there was a difference in their ranking, there was still a possibility that Caesar could win. "Since you're not convinced, should we give it a try?" Seth was unfazed. "Okay, let me see the skills of the sword whisperer firsthand." A glint flashed in Caesar's eyes as he started to gather the energy. The first move. 7 then. Seth didn't waste time and immediately pointed his sword upward. Dragon Sparrow's sword instantly shot 300 feet into the sky. Then the sword tip turned and aimed at Caesar on the ground. Then Seth pointed his sword finger downward. In the air, Dragon Sparrow's sword immediately emitted a dazzling golden light. Then the golden light rapidly spread, forming a 30-foot-long golden giant sword. The giant sword soared toward Caesar like a missile. What? Caesar's eyes widened in shock. He immediately mimicked the motion of drawing a bow. Then he shot out a black arrow. The black arrow shot upward to the sky. Then it forcefully collided with the golden giant sword. A loud explosion echoed as the black arrow exploded on the spot. Meanwhile, the golden giant sword was unscathed and headed straight toward Caesar. Caesar's expression turned grim. Then he immediately gathered all his internal energy and formed a thick protective sphere on his head. A huge explosion could be heard. The huge golden sword collided with Caesar's protective sphere. The strong impact caused a crater to be formed where Caesar stood. The initially indestructible protective sphere instantly started to crack. The cracks caused Caesar to tremble in fear. If the protective sphere shattered and the sword struck onto his head, he would die immediately. Caesar roared as he gathered his strength, knowing he would lose if he did nothing. The internal energy inside of him oozed out like a tide. It kept reinforcing the protective sphere and repairing the cracks. However, the golden blade grew stronger and stronger. The repaired cracks would appear once again. Caesar felt that a mountain was weighing down on him. He would be crushed to death if he couldn't bear the weight. At this moment, he finally realized how scary Seth's ability was. Boundless Zen. Borrowing the power of earth and heaven. Seeing that he couldn't hold on for any longer, Caesar used his energy and blood to summon a mysterious technique. A vortex suddenly appeared on the surface of the protective shield when he stomped his feet. The vortex started to absorb the golden sword's terrifying strength rapidly. When the vortex absorbed enough power, it started to radiate golden light. Caesar gritted his teeth and pushed it upward. "Rig," he yelled. The golden sword suddenly started to buzz. It exploded with a pop, turning into spakes of lights and dissipating. The actual dragon sparrow sword inside immediately flew back and hovered before Seth. Although Caesar managed to force the sword to retreat, he was exhausted. He was sweating profusely and panting heavily. He even felt weak in his knees. The sword technique was way too terrifying. If Caesar hadn't used a mysterious technique to absorb the power of the giant sword and rebound it, he might not have been able to withstand it. "What, are you tired already?" "I was just warming up." Seth's expression was indifferent. He lifted his hand and pointed forward. The second sword. "Kill the enemy." Dragon Sparrow's sword let out a buzz. Immediately, rays of golden light shot out from it. The golden light quickly transformed and took the shape of a golden dragon. The golden dragon roared. Then, it charged toward Caesar fiercely. Boundless Zen. Borrowing the power of earth and heaven. Caesar was shocked. Immediately, he used his mysterious technique again. He tried to absorb the golden dragon's energy and rebound it. However, the situation this time was completely different. When the golden dragon crashed through Caesar's protective sphere, it shattered like glass. It couldn't stand against the attack at all. Meanwhile, the energy vortex summoned by the mysterious technique only managed to absorb some of the golden dragon's energy. Then, it could no longer take the burden and collapsed. What? Caesar was scared out of his wits? At such a critical point, he could only cross his arms over his chest. He decided to resist the blow with his body. A loud explosion sounded. Under the golden dragon's impact, Caesar flew several feet into the sky like a bullet fired from a gun. Then he slammed into a rock. The once sturdy rock had a human-sized indent from the impact. Caesar was pale, and blood flowed from his mouth and nose. It was a horrifying sight to see. "Nice one." Abigail couldn't help but cheer. She didn't expect the imposing and arrogant Caesar to be in such a miserable state after being beaten up. She wondered who the man they referred to as Mr. Hughes was. "We're doomed." When Nestor saw that from afar, his expression turned grim. Compared to 10 years ago, Seth had become more powerful. Caesar was the head of the martial arts union, however. He couldn't even take 2 of Seth's attacks. It was obvious how much stronger Seth was than Caesar. This is the 3rd attack. Greedy Wolf. Seth stared at Caesar indifferently and lifted his hand. Dragon Sparrow sword floated in the air again. Then it emitted a breathtaking sword aura. In an instant, the weather changed. The wind and clouds surged, and even the air became heavy. Countless debris and fallen leaves flew toward the dragon sparrow sword, surrounding it. All of them were resonating with the sword. Although the sword was still gathering power to unleash its attack, it already emitted a destructive power. It was obvious that the power of this attack was more fierce and terrifying than the last 2. Caesar was so scared that he shook like a leaf. Goosebumps started to appear on his body. Caesar was overwhelmed with the fear of death. "Why are you guys still hiding? Quickly come out and help." Caesar used all his might to scream. His voice was like thunder. It rang throughout the mountains. Just as he finished shouting, a blue figure suddenly emerged from the north. Then he rushed toward them at an incredible speed. At the same time, a black figure jumped out from the woods in the north. He turned into a dark mist and drifted over. As the blue figure approached, everyone realized he was a handsome middle-aged man. The man held a sword with an indifferent expression, exuding a chilling aura. Wherever he went, the plants around him would freeze. Even the ground he stepped on would be frozen for a radius of 300 feet. This made it impossible for anyone to approach him. As for the black figure, nobody could see its appearance. They could only see a swirling black mist around the figure. None of them could tell if the figure was a man or a female. Oh my goodness! Isn't that Frostbane Citadel's guildmaster, Frostbane? Why is he here? What Frost? Isn't he number 7 on the Astonishing World list? Not only is Frost here, but the figure with the black mist should be the Bounty League leader. He's number 9 on the Astonishing World list, Elder Shade. There's the unrivaled master within the palace gates, Nestor, followed by the head of martial arts union, Caesar. After that, the sword whisperer Seth appeared. Now even Elder Shade and Frost appeared. What the heck? It's a battle of the best today. I can't believe I'm seeing so many legendary figures at once. I can die without any regrets now. When Frost and Elder Shade appeared, there was a huge commotion. After all, the Astonishing World list consisted of the most powerful martial artists on Earth. They rarely appeared. Thus, a person was considered lucky to be able to meet one. Therefore, the crowd felt like they were dreaming when so many of them appeared at once. I'm Frostbane Citadel's guildmaster. Frostbane, I'm here to seek guidance from you. Frost held his sword and spoke indifferently. His expression was emotionless and as cold as ice. I've heard of the Sword Whisperer for a long time. The old me is here to seek some guidance for you. Elder Shade hid in the black mist and let out a piercing laugh. It seems like both of you came here for me. Seth's expression was indifferent and emotionless. We're only here as backup. However, we didn't expect you would come all the way here. Well, you made our wish come true by doing so. Elder Shade smiled evilly. If we can get rid of you now, it'll be a huge achievement. Do you all have what it takes to defeat me? There was a hint of mockery on Seth's face. Let's try it out. Perhaps we can, Elder Shade replied with a smile. Okay, I'll give you all a chance today. Come at me if you dare. Tapping his foot, Seth soared into the air and headed toward the top of Quandary Mountain. With their cultivation level, it would be easy for them to hurt innocent people if they fought here. They needed a secluded area to fight. Mr. Bane, you're the most capable. Why don't you go first? Elder Shade tried asking. Frost sneered and jumped without a word. Then, he shot into the air like an arrow and chased after Seth. Mr. Fent, are you okay? Can you fight another round? Elder Shade looked toward Caesar. I'm not dead yet. Caesar took out a tablet and ate it. After he felt his strength return, he jumped up and rushed toward the mountain peak. Caesar knew everyone here wasn't a match with Seth if they fought a one-on-one battle. They had to work together to have a chance at taking him down. Mr. Fent, let me assist you. Elder Shade was the most alert out of them. After transforming into a puff of black mist, he followed behind Caesar calmly. Once the four of them reached the summit, a world-shaking battle would soon be unfolded. Seth led the three martial artists on the Astonishing World list to a life and death battle at the mountain peak. Meanwhile, Dustin was still the center of attention at the foot of the mountain. However, Dustin felt much more at ease than having to feel Caesar's stare. Abigail, consume this tablet quickly. Dustin took the opportunity to create some distance between him and the enemies. Then, he moved toward the injured Abigail and gave her a tablet for healing. Abigail didn't hesitate and swallowed it. Her initial pale complexion soon flushed with color. Although she was not fully recovered, the pill helped her regain some of her energy. Sir, who is that man just now? He's so capable. Abigail was curious. He's the Sword Whisperer, Seth Hughes, Dustin explained. What? He's the Sword Whisperer, Seth? Abigail widened her eyes in shock and joy. Although it hadn't been long since she entered the martial world, she had also heard of Seth's name. Seth was someone even her grandmother respected. Seth's sword skills were unparalleled. He had already reached the highest peak in swordsmanship. Throughout history, no one was comparable with Seth when it came to his sword skills. Abigail thought that it was no wonder Seth was so formidable. After all, he was the famous sword whisperer. Don't get too happy. Caesar, Alder Lane, and Frost are all competent people on the astonishing world list. Uncle Seth will need to put in some effort to defeat them. As for us, we're not entirely out of danger yet. Destin stared at Abigail and muttered, Abigail, you got injured just now. It won't do you good to fight. I'll stall them later, and you should use the opportunity to escape. You shouldn't stay back and fight. Sir, what do you think of me? How could I leave you and escape? Plus, it's not like I'm completely useless. I can help you a bit when we fight, Abigail replied unhappily. Your life is important. I can't let you be in danger anymore. Destin furrowed his eyebrows. Destin felt guilty that Abigail got injured. He didn't wish for the latter to get into any other accidents again. I'm in charge of my own life. You don't need to worry. Plus, I'm extremely capable. I'm the Mystic Arts Order's Grand Sorceress. After all, there's no way I would die so easily. Abigail, Destin wanted to say more. However, Nestor had led a group of soldiers and horses and surrounded them. Your Grace, you're already doomed. Instead of worrying about others' lives, why don't you think about how you should escape? Nestor said with a smirk. Escape? Destin sneered. Did I say I was going to escape? Only one can leave here alive today. It's either you or me who would die. What, do you think you have a chance to win? Or are you hoping for Seth to come and save you? After looking in the mountain's direction, Nestor continued with a smile. Even if Seth is the famous sword whisperer, he would still be overpowered when fighting against 3 competent martial artists. I don't need Uncle Seth to kill you. Come and fight fair and square with me if you're a man. Destin looked at him mockingly as if realizing something. Oh, I almost forgot. You're not considered a man. You can only be considered a castrate. Upon hearing that, Abigail couldn't help but laugh. Anders and the others looked at Destin like he was a fool, their eyelids twitching. They thought that Destin didn't know what was good for him. After all, Destin still dared to mock them even though he was in deep trouble. It was a direct insult to call Nestor a castrate. He was the unrivaled master within the palace gates, after all. Destin, you'll only die more miserably if you provoke me. Nestor's smile disappeared. His gaze turned more and more vicious.